Alright, we got a 2008 Toyota Prius in here. We're going to change the valve cover gasket, spark plugs, and PCV valve. The reason why we're changing the valve cover gasket is he said he's getting oil down into a spark plug area. So I'll show you why that happens on a bad valve cover gasket. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll show it to you. And on these, I go ahead and remove the windshield wiper cowl area. It makes it easier to get to the valve cover. You may be able to remove these without doing that, but I just go ahead and do it anyway because it only takes a few minutes and it opens up the area quite a bit for you. So we'll go ahead and take the wipers off first in that cowl area, and then start taking off the stuff to get the valve cover off. It's not a super bad job, but like I said, it's taking the cowling off and the windshield wiper and all that. If you're not familiar with doing it, you know, this video might help you with that. So it's, like I said, it may not be 100% necessary, but it makes it a lot easier in my opinion. And I like being able to get the valve cover in and out without messing up the new gasket. So I just go ahead and take that off. So anyway, we'll go over there and I'll show you why it's leaking in the spark plug when we get to that step. But we'll go ahead and get over there and start taking this thing apart. First thing we're going to do is remove the 3 nuts to hold the windshield wipers in place. Should be 14 mil. Just go and remove them all. Now on this one you have a small cover on it. Just get a screwdriver and pop that off. It's real easy to get off. Once you get that cover off, you'll be able to see the nut. And then be able to get to the nut, take it off. And on these, just grab a hold of and kind of rock them back and forth. It should pop right off. You got 2 clips on each end of this cowling area. This one was missing one. Then you have another one here. And then it just kind of pulls up. Kind of snapped in there, so we're just going to unsnap it or pull it out. And it should not give you too much trouble. And it should pull out. Now the next thing we're going to do is disconnect that windshield wiper motor and pull that whole unit out of there, and then we'll be able to pull the rest of the cowling out, and then you can get to the valve cover. Alright, so you just grab a hold of the connector at the end where the push has that, push down on it, pull that out, and then you should have, I think, 5 10mm bolts that come out. That should remove this whole unit. This whole thing should just pull right out. Alright, so we're going to move this relay box off. It should be 2 10mm. Now this is connected with little clips in the back, and you have to compress the clips from the back side, and then it should pull straight. They should pull straight out like that. You can use needle nose too or whatever. Should be 3 of those. That just pulls this wiring harness. We're going to remove this whole cowl area right here, so that just pulls that out. And then we'll get a cat claw for this one. And I'll go ahead and get needle nose for that last one and a cat claw. Alright, so I just used needle nose, got this last one out. And then use whatever you have, cat claw or dikes or whatever. Just pull up on this one. That one should pull out. Now this is ready to come out. There's a bunch of 10 millimeters in this. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like 7 of them, 10 mil. And you'll see them. And that should pull this whole black cowling area completely out. Should be it, and then you just pull this thing completely out. I'm gonna go ahead and get the screws so I don't, or bolts so I don't lose them. And once you're under your car, you'll kind of see why we do this. Opens up the entire engine bay. And you can see it only took a few minutes to do it, and I think it's worth it than trying to sneak that valve cover out of there. Alright, we're going for this air box next. Got connector here on the side. Just push it on it, and then it should pull out. And then you have a 10 millimeter hose on this side. Take that out. You got 2 10 millimeter bolts in the back. Go ahead and take those out. And then we have one down here on the throttle body itself. I believe it's 10 millimeter too. Loosen that one up. Now this box should pull straight up. And we got this little connector hooked to it still. Let me get this off real quick. Just kind of pull up on this and that'll release that, and then we can move this out of the way. We'll put that off to the side, and then we're almost down where we need to be. We'll go ahead and loosen that brake reservoir, but we won't take it off from the hoses. So we're just going to loosen it, kind of get it out of the way. Makes it easier to get the valve cover out. And then we're going to pull off. There's 3 bolts that hold this top cover on with the wiring harness, and we're going to take these coil packs out. And he need the spark plugs for this one, so we're going to go ahead and change the spark plugs. Either way, you got to take those coil packs out to get the valve cover off. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these 2 bolts out. And just dropped that one, unfortunately. Did sound like it hit the bottom though, or the floor. And I'm just kind of doing everything that's 10 millimeter, just kind of knocking it out of the way. So you can see right there, if you move that, it kind of gives you more access. We'll have to move it while we're taking it out, but I'm going to go ahead and take off these 3 here. Losing everything. These are all 10 mil. This is basically just a big wiring harness holder. I'm going to go through and I'm just going to disconnect all the coil packs. Just push down the back of the clip, then they should come straight out. You'll kind of hear them click once they disconnect or disengage. This one in the back's all hard to get to. I'm going to go ahead and take this 10 off. go ahead and disconnect all the fuel injectors just to get the wiring harness clear of the valve cover. This will allow us to kind of move the harness off to the side, gives you enough slack to get the valve cover out itself. So I'll go ahead and move those out, and then got this last coil pack to unbolt, or to unclip. And that one is kind of in a bad spot. It's twisted. It's right up against this harness. But it can be done. So once you get all that off, go ahead and take your bolts out for your coil pack. I like to put my coil backs in the same hole they came out of. You don't have to, as long as you don't have any misfires or anything, but just a habit that I've been in. So anyway, I'm going to pull all those out, set them off to the side, and then we'll pick it back up. Alright, you got these two big hoses right here that go to the throttle body. I just go ahead and pull those off from this end. They come off with the valve cover. It's easier to get to them. The one closest to the radiator has a little clip on it. You can use your hand and just compress that and pull it up. And the other one doesn't have anything on it, just slips in and out. So what we're going to do now is just go after the outer, all the bolts that hold the valve cover in. I think there's 9 of them, and I don't know what my problem is today with dropping stuff. But anyway, they should all be 10 millimeter. And we're just go around and take them all out, remove them, and then this valve cover is almost ready to come out. Alright, once you got the bolts out, you should be able to kind of snake it out, kind of lift it up and take it out towards the back. And this is what's left of the gasket here. You can see this gasket goes around the spark plug holes. And that's what causes, when the gases start to fail, that's what causes oil down in those holes. And that's what he was seeing when he changed the spark plug. So that's the reason why we're taking this off. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the spark plugs out real quick, and then put this gasket on and start putting it back together. Alright, so I went ahead and changed the PCV valve, changed the PCV valve while I had it off. It's on the end of the valve cover, it's just 19 millimeter. You're just going to pull off this hose here and use 19 millimeter and then put a new one in. So it's pretty simple. This is where your spark plug holes are at. You can see there's a gasket around it. And like I mentioned earlier, if you're having a lot of oil down in your spark plug holes, then your gasket is bad and leaking right there, and that's why we're replacing this one. This one, the gasket's a Toyota gasket. It's not wanting to sit on there exactly the way I want it to. So I ended up putting a little bit of glue on this last, that's what that brown stuff is, a little bit of tack glue, gasket glue, to try to hold it while I put it in place. Because you don't want this thing coming out of place and then you're stuck taking it back apart again. So anyway, would have liked to see the Toyota gasket be a little bit better, but it's not really. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and install this on there, and then we'll start putting it back together. Alright, so I got all the bolts restarted, and I got the gasket hopefully seated properly. I just was kept trying to pop out in that one hole. It really kind of upsets me, because Toyota, you'd think they would make better gaskets, but anyway, pretty sure it's good. So I got them all started, 7 foot-pounds. I'm just going to go around and kind of snug them down, and then we'll torque them down to 7 foot-pounds. Alright, so I'd already changed the spark plugs on it and put new plugs in it. Got all the coils dropped in, got them bolted in, got them snapped in. So I'm going to go ahead and put in all the fuel injectors and start just bolting up this wiring harness back to where it was. Remember, we took those bolts out, and then go from there. I think the next thing will be the air box, and then we'll start putting this cowling back together. But we're almost in the home stretch. Put the 2 bolts back in there. I got to get the one from under the car that fell. But you can see it's just going back together the way we took it apart. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start putting some of the bolts back together, and then we'll pick it back up. Alright, so I got the air box back in. You just got that clamp on the bottom. the clamp on the side, and then you have your connector here that goes back in. Don't forget to put your 2 hoses back in from the valve cover. Like I said, I know I'm going through this kind of quick. If you took it apart, you know how to put it back together. I got that cowl area back in. There's 7 bolts there for the 10 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and tighten those down, and then we'll put the wiper motor assembly back in and button this thing up. We still have 2 bolts here that go to that assembly, but we're going to tighten it first. Alright, so I got the assembly in there. Don't forget to plug it in before you put your plastic cover on, and don't forget to pop all your line harness back in. And once again, it's up installed. You got your 2 bolts that go in here, and then we have, we're going to plug this in, push that in, and then we're going to put that plastic over, put the wipers back on. Alright, so the wipers are all back together. It's running now. You can hear the engine running. We'll just let it run a minute or so, as long as the car will let us run it. Make sure it's not leaking, and it's good to go. You can tell it's not a real hard job. The biggest thing that's different from most cars, you got to remove that cowling area. Like I said, you might be able to do it without doing it, but it would be a big pain in the butt. So it's just easier to move it out of the way. It takes 5 minutes, and you're good to go. So anyway, that's it for an 08 Prius. Thanks for watching. As always, God bless.